reversal of fortune. Hours after changing his mind on worldwide trade tariffs, the president praising his previous foe in Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
We're honored to have Gretchen Whitmer.
We'll unpack an unusual day in D.C. From Pontiac to the Potomac, Mayor Tim Griml is the latest official looking to upgrade his office as he announces a run for Congress. And trade up. Skilled trades workers are badly needed here in Michigan, especially if tariffs force more jobs back home. What's being done to find them and train them? It's Sunday, April 13th, and this is Flashpoint. Happy Sunday, everybody. I'm Jason Colthorpe. As the week progressed, the stock market continued to lose trillions in value as President Donald Trump doubled down on taxing goods coming to the U.S. from countries around the world. Pressure began to mount, even from Republicans and supporters of the president, until Wednesday, when he announced a 90-day stoppage on those tariffs. That sent the markets into the stratosphere, gaining the most points in a single day since a guy named Truman was in the White House. But it still hasn't stabilized. Wednesday was also interesting in the fact Governor Gretchen Whitmer was in Washington to give an economic speech that couldn't help feel a little like a foundational moment of a possible presidential run in a couple of years. She even drew praise from President Trump during a moment in the Oval Office hours later as he talked about wonderful possibilities for Selfridge Air National Guard Base. It will certainly be a moment we might point to months and years down the road. Another election coming next year, and it will look for the successor to John James in the 10th District, who announced his run for governor this week. Two Democrats are already in this race, Army veteran Alex Hawkins and former prosecutor Christina Hines. They now will face off with former Democratic State House Minority Leader and current mayor of Pontiac, Tim Griml, who announced on Thursday. How does he expect to win a district that's gone red 2 straight cycles, if he even makes it out of the primary? Let's ask him right now on Flashpoint. And here he is, Pontiac Mayor Tim Griml. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We'll start right there. In a district that's gone red twice in a row, right in the middle of a state that's now been red 2 out of 3 times, is it a long shot for a Democrat to win this, no matter who the Republican ends up being?
Well, this is a 50-50 battleground district. It's a district that really looks like America. It has the same economic challenges that most Americans face, high inflation in recent years, obviously struggling with some of the economic chaos coming out of Washington right now. And this is a district that can be won if we focus on the actual economic needs of everyday people. And that's been my entire adult life's focus and fight.
Well, put a finer point on that. What are the economic issues that are facing this district right now?
Yeah. Well, number one, the high cost of goods. We see it every day at the grocery store. We see it elsewhere. And we need fighters in Washington who are going to fight to bring down prices and costs. That's number one. Number two, we've got to have a sensible, rational trade policy. Certainly, taking on bad actors like China makes a lot of sense, but going after countries like Canada, with which we have a shared economic interest, makes no sense at all. And that's going to drive up the cost of goods. It's going to idle auto plants, which we've already started seeing. So we need a rational economic policy that actually improves the well-being of workers rather than making it worse.
While we're talking about tariffs, both Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and Sean Fain have said they're for auto tariffs if it does indeed bring back more jobs and more opportunities to Michigan. Where do you stand on that?
Well, again, it's got to be targeted, and so I think it can make a lot of sense to go after bad actors like China, but going after Canada, where we have this integrated supply chain across the border, really doesn't make sense.
So you would disagree with them on that?
I would disagree that tariffs on Canada make sense. I don't think that we need to engage in a trade war against Canada, but against other countries like China, I think it makes perfect sense.
Gotcha. What's your pitch to the voter who says currently you'd have to move back into the district? Is that right? If you do, to the voter who says, I can't vote for a guy who doesn't live here.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I was born and raised in the district, served and was elected to a local school board in the district. I was elected and served on the county commission in the district. And so I have deep roots in this district. I'll be moving back into the district well before the election.
You mentioned having served on a school board, so you're well aware of the struggles Michigan students have had in recent years, looking at the nation's report card, underwater in science and reading. What do you do to turn those numbers around? You go to Washington, we've seen the Department of Education suffer major cuts. What do you do and get to work to make sure we turn those numbers around here?
Well, the single biggest determinant of an individual's economic well-being is, do they have the education or skill set needed to fill good paying jobs? So we need to be investing more in education. The approach that the administration in DC has taken of dismantling the Department of Education is exactly the wrong approach. We need to be investing more in education, certainly holding schools accountable for positive results for students, but we've got to be investing in making sure that our young people and people of all ages have the skill sets they need to fill good paying jobs and succeed economically.
Is there further to go than just say invest in it, because the governor has raised per pupil funding over the last few years? It's currently the highest it's ever been, and the results just aren't there.
Well, that's why I say we've got to hold school districts accountable to spend that money wisely in a way that actually improves student outcomes. We need smaller class sizes. We need to make sure that we're teaching the right subjects. And we also need to open up additional pathways for people to get good, skilled trades training. You know, not everybody's going to go to college. That's okay. We have shortages right now in a lot of skilled trades, and we need to do more to make sure that more people have a pathway to get into that kind of work, because it can provide a great living for families.
You fought for, one of the things you've mentioned that you want to fight for is clean water.
Yep.
Currently, in your district, an interesting little conundrum happening between Macomb County and Oakland County, where Macomb County accusing Oakland of dumping waste on its side and into the waterway. Where would you fall on that, and how do you try and help solve that?
Well, this is a perfect example of a situation where the federal government has to step up to the plate and help invest in more storm sewer and sanitary sewer infrastructure, because we've got to treat this waste before it's discharged. And that's really the solution here. The federal government can play that role of bringing dollars to the table to invest in a stronger sanitary and storm sewer system so that we're not discharging waste directly into the waterways. This is a critically important issue. Lake St. Clair is important in terms of boating and fishing and swimming, but it's also a key economic driver for all of Southeast Michigan, especially Macomb County.
How tough is that when you represent both counties, although the district is largely Macomb County, and they're having a face-off? Do you get involved in that, and how do you kind of toe that line?
Well, I actually think it makes this role even more important, because this is a role as a sitting congressman representing both counties where we can bring federal dollars to the table, help mediate the dispute, and actually resolve this in a way that benefits everybody involved.
In 2018, you ran in the old 11th, lost to Haley Stevens. What did you learn from that race?
Well, the biggest lesson I learned is to get in the race earlier. I got in that race 6 months.
You wasted no time this time.
6 months after Congresswoman Stevens, who's doing a great job, by the way. And this time, I'm not making that mistake. I'm getting in early, and that's why we're made the announcement this week.
Do you have any sort of events planned? What's your plan to connect with the district as well, also still running the city of Pontiac?
Well, I've already started going to a lot of events in the district, getting to meet even more voters, but I'll be knocking on a lot of doors to meet voters on their doorsteps, and I will be very, very visible, as I already have been, but we're going to continue to communicate with voters and really talk with voters about their day-to-day challenges. I've spent my entire adult life fighting for everyday people and working families. I did it in the state legislature as the House Minority Leader, where I successfully fought to expand Medicaid to provide health insurance to over 650,000 Michiganders. I did it when I successfully fought to increase the minimum wage in the state legislature and in the state as a whole, and we indexed it to inflation. I did it as a union side labor lawyer and as a civil rights attorney, and we're going to make sure that when I go to Washington, we're fighting for the economic well-being of all of Southeast Michigan, especially working families and those who are struggling day in and day out.
Last thing I have, 30 seconds. You talk about going to Washington. If you do, you're in a party that's very unpopular right now, the lowest approval it's ever been. Do you work to change how the Democratic Party is seen, or do you even care about that?
Well, look, I'm focused on fighting for everyday people, and I think the Democratic Party needs to be more focused on economic issues. People right now are upset, they're scared, and it's a very, very difficult economic time for folks. I'm going to be focused on taking on the unelected billionaires in Washington, D.C., like Elon Musk, and delivering for working families and everyday people.
Mayor Tim Griml, we appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. We're going to talk skilled trades right after this. More Flashpoint coming up. Welcome back to Flashpoint, everybody. Trade Up is one of our efforts here at Local 4, and it highlights the men and women of Detroit working in the trades. This week, Kimberly Gill introduced us to the program. Take a look.
I get two reactions. I get one where it's, oh my gosh, you're a woman, that's just awesome. And one's like, oh my gosh, you're a woman.
At just 20 years old, Kelly Tran is already making service calls, solving real-world problems, and building a future for herself, one heating system at a time.
I just love what I do.
Kelly is a technician at CNC Heating and Air Conditioning in Roseville. She's been on the job for just a year, but the story of how she got here starts much earlier in 2020 when her family's furnace failed, leaking carbon monoxide.
If my mother didn't shut off the furnace or tell my dad to shut off the furnace, I wouldn't be here today.
That dangerous day planted a seed, and now with training and passion, Kelly is turning it into purpose, doing the very work that once saved her life.
I'm checking your heat exchanger, making sure those aren't cracked or anything. We're taking temperature differential, and that allows me to see how much heat your furnace is producing.
As part of our Trade Up series, we're profiling people like Kelly to challenge outdated ideas that college is the best way forward.
So my original thought was dermatology. And then 2 weeks before we could put in our applications for our colleges, I completely lost that passion.
Kelly isn't the only one finding her calling in the trades. 28-year-old Nicholas Schultz was in college studying finance when he decided to switch career paths.
I just couldn't sit in a chair for 8 hours and stare at a screen and answer phone calls for the rest of my life.
Nick enrolled in trade school and never looked back. Now he's thriving as a technician, proud to be learning fast, earning good money, and staying ahead of the curve.
A lot of people that went to college, tough finding jobs. A lot of them aren't even using the degree that they got.
CNC Heating and Air Conditioning is investing in young workers with or without experience, offering real opportunities to grow.
That's just part of this story. Let's talk about it more with Kimberly Gill, who's in studio this morning. First of all, you know what jumps out at me? I want to talk all about how Trade Up works, by the way.
Sure.
But the fact that we really need to look at what was once considered, you got to go to college, you got to do this, but we're changing that thinking, and that really tackles that issue.
That's exactly right. Let's really be real about this. College is not for everybody, and we need to stop making it like a stigma that it's something wrong with going into the skilled trades or that it's not as good as going to college. When you look at the cost of how much college has gone up over the years, it is practically unaffordable.
Goes up every single year now.
Exactly, and kids are graduating and have a ton of debt, and they're managing that for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years after they graduate, when maybe you could have gone into the skilled trades, had a similar salary when you enter your career path without the student loan debt.
And I feel like so many people, we hear it when you go out and you report stories, you hear from people, you know what, looking back, I didn't need to go to college. I actually could have landed in the same spot had I taken a different path.
Exactly. I think you and I are of similar age, and I can remember in high school there were vocational programs that kids could go to. Now, when my dad was in high school, it was looked at as something that was good, that, yeah, you go to vocational school, you learn a trade, you go to shop class, you learn about plumbing or electrical work, you get out of high school and you have a job. By the time you and I came along, something happened. I don't know what happened.
I blame
around
Hollywood.
Hollywood, maybe?
I can think of several movies where somebody goes, I'm not going to college, Dad. Oh, you're going to college.
You're right.
You have to go to college. And now we finally come back around.
That's exactly right. But we have to get out of that. And I can remember really like feeling like in high school that it was the kids that were not maybe as smart. I hate to say it like that, but that was the stigma, and we have to change that, and that's what Trade Up is about.
Well, let's talk about that. Exactly how, because I see the promos we're running, and it looks very exciting. How does it work?
Yeah, I have to thank our Vice President and General Manager, Bob Ellis. This was his idea, but he asked me to kind of kick off the initiative and be the face of it because I put myself through college, as you know, driving an 18-wheeler and working in the skilled trades. And so this is right up my alley. But what we want to do is we're going to tell stories about people who are in the skilled trades profession and really highlight the work that they do and just shine a light on the positivity. You got to think, this great city that we live in, it's built off of the backs of people in the skilled trades, you know, people who are carpenters, who are iron workers, electricians, plumbers, so on and so forth. And those are really proud jobs and people that we should celebrate, not frown upon.
We need more of them, too. We're going to talk about that in a second. Tell me about, I think your story is always the one that everybody loves it because it's a wonderful story in just, not just driving the big rigs, but the things you learn by doing that. And folks don't realize this. You never even gave up your license.
That's right. I think we have a picture that we can show you that I still keep my Class A commercial driver's license current, just in case this TV thing doesn't work out. And the more and more that AI is taking over our industry, it makes me think, you know, that was probably a good idea that I do keep my Class A commercial driver's license current. But yeah, it was. I was 19 years old and a freshman in college when I discovered that FedEx was looking for package handlers. Yeah. And I applied for the job, started working there. They were the type of company that hired and liked to promote from within. So I went from package handler to forklift driver to customer service. Worked there a total of 7 years. It took me that long to get my undergraduate degree because I was working full-time, going to college part-time. But the last 3 years of the 7 years I worked there, I drove 18-wheelers. Yeah. And they paid for me to go to truck driving school for 3 weeks. And I was home every night, so it wasn't an over-the-road, but it was a 53-foot tractor trailer that I drove every day.
And you're still tempted to stop on the side of the road and help a guy out if he's broken down?
Oh,
you want me to move that for you?
Well, I can tell you, when they're trying to get over on the interstate, I flash my lights, let them over.
You know
I still have that mindset. But yeah, you know, it just built so much character. I am so happy that I had that experience. There are a lot of things that I missed in college, like, you know, the fraternity parties and the pledging a sorority. I didn't get to do those things because I was working, but the person that I became through that experience, and it grounded me in reality. Grit. You talk about Detroit grit. Yeah. That's why I feel like I have that. That's why I feel like I'm so at home around Detroiters and in Detroit, even though I'm not originally from here.
You never know.
And you know, it is just something that I think everybody should work hard and have some sort of hard work. And even though I don't do it now, you know, a lot of it was I wanted to please my parents, and I think my parents thought that they wanted me to do better than them. My dad worked in the skilled trades. He was a body mechanic and drove a wrecker. Yeah. He never thought his daughter would drive an 18-wheeler, but at the same time I thought, you know, they want me to go to college, I'll go to college, but I probably could have had a really nice career as a truck driver and maybe even owned my own trucking company.
And the other thing in the story that we didn't see in the clip we showed is the CEO talks about these jobs are AI-proof. You talked about worrying about AI. They are recession-proof. That's right. And as we talk tariffs all the time, if the president gets his way and brings all these jobs back here, which the auto companies and the auto unions would love, the economists say we don't have the skilled trades right now to accompany that.
There are not enough people who are going in this profession for what we need, and we need to change that. We have to change that.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of dynamic where we are with that, but you Do the people that you talk to, are they worried about AI or recession-proof jobs and things?
Absolutely. I mean, you think I bring up that example about the accounting analyst, starting at 50 or 60,000. The jobs that some accountants do are going to be replaced by AI. But can you replace your plumber with AI? I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
I don't think so. And you look at all the older homes and our older infrastructure just in the city of Detroit. I used to live in one of those old homes in Detroit, and I think about all the times I needed a skilled tradesperson and how difficult it was to find a roofer who could work on a slate roof. There are like three people in all of Detroit that can do that kind of work, or thrh companies.
Yeah, not to mention somebody to get an owl out of the house.
Don't talk about that. I had an owl in my old house in Detroit. But yes, so that's what Trade Up is all about. Is we want to just tell stories and highlight the work that people in this profession do, and let people know that college isn't for everybody. And not just, we don't mean to single out young people. It's people too that are in a different profession and they want to change professions. So there's going to be resources on clickondetroit.com where you can go to. And we urge people to tell us your stories. We're going to compile all that information in one place on Click On.
I love it.
And there will be resources for people.
And we look forward to it. KG, thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
We'll wrap up this edition coming up next. Let's finish up with four things, and you're going to have to forgive me for a little self-indulgence this morning. This week would have been my mom's 75th birthday. We lost her 19 years ago now, and I think of her quite often. But this week I couldn't help but wonder what advice she'd be giving me if she were around. So here you go. 4 pieces of advice from my mom, Kathy Marie Colthorpe. Number 1. You don't have to lock in the radio on the oldies station like she did, but every day you do need to listen to at least one song from your childhood and just reminisce about that time of your life. Number 2, be yourself. Don't be afraid to take chances. When she got tired of Michigan winters, she packed up her 2 sons and moved to Florida, and she never regretted it. And speaking of being bold, she once painted the entire house pink. Not the inside, the outside of the house, the entire thing. Thank God I'd left for college. Number 3, whenever you make a to-do list, no matter what's on it, always make sure the very first thing you do is lay in the sun and read a book, preferably a cheap romance novel. And 4, never miss an opportunity to make friends with a total stranger. This is her trait that I'm most proud to have inherited. If I had a nickel every time she was chatting and laughing with the cashier at the grocery store in the time that it took for our groceries to go from the belt to the bags, well, I'd probably have about 80 cents. And a little bonus for the women out there, don't ever turn 40. Just start counting back and forth between 35 and 39. My mom was never more than 39 years old by her count. That's going to do it for our show this week. And remember, you can always chime in with an email to flashpoint@clickondetroit.com. We're going to try and hit a mailbag next week for you. I'm Jason Colthorpe. We'll see you later.